What is the right way to deal with a ghost? If, at first, a ghost just kind of seems to be like, hey, I'm here, should you ask it to leave right away, or should you make it feel welcome and give it a place in your family? And at what point can one family's ordeal with the supernatural go from a public concern to a scene of touristic observation? What effect might that have on the ghost and the family dealing with it in the first place? Welcome to Strange and Unexplained with me, Daisy Egan. If you're just joining us, welcome, but also go back and listen to part 1 of this episode. This is part 2. Just this morning, I had 2 weird encounters. First, as I was standing at my kitchen sink looking out across my backyard, I could have sworn I saw a huge dark figure lurking in the hollow behind our house. It was either a huge person in a cloak and hood, like the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, or it was Bigfoot. I watched it for a while, and if I wanted to, I could swear I saw it move. And then, in the road, just up the street, I could see from my bedroom window what I swore was a dead deer. It made no sense because no one goes fast enough on our street to kill a deer like that. So I ran to get my binoculars, and first I took a look at the whatever it was in the backyard. Listen, I don't know what it was, but it was neither a Nazgul nor a Bigfoot. It was just like a tree or something. And the dead deer? That was a Home Depot bag. My point is, sometimes we see what we want to see. Not that I wanted to see a Nazgul or a dead deer, Lord knows. And if our imaginations are active enough, we can see some pretty wacky stuff. But for Debra and Tony Pickman, seeing things that weren't there was the least of their problems. It's one thing to trick your brain into thinking you see a ghost. It's quite another to watch scratches form on your body in real time, seemingly out of nowhere. To recap, the Pickman family, Debra and her husband Tony, quickly realized their new home came complete with the ghost of a little girl who came to be called Sallie. And while Debra treated Sallie like another member of the family, Tony seemed to be drawing Sallie's ire. When we left off, Tony came face to face with Sallie in their kitchen on Halloween of 1993. As the holidays approached, Sallie ramped up her fire-starting shenanigans. One of the decorative candles in the bathroom had been lit despite Debra's rule about not lighting the candles, and the self-twirling teddy bear caught fire in a very strange and seemingly intentional pattern. Each time, it seems, Debra admonished Sallie, telling her no more fires or else. Like each time. Not again or else. But or else never really seemed to come. The book, The Sallie House Haunting: A True Story, which Debra wrote a couple of decades after the events, was self-published, and I don't think she had an editor or proofreader, and I only bring that up because perhaps if she had, they might have pointed out how many times she apparently told Sallie to stop setting fires or else. Surely I'm not the only reader who noticed. Additionally, Debra states that at one point a, quote, tiny ceramic vase was flung through the air at a wall, landing on the floor below. An editor might have pointed out that a discerning reader, or even really a casual one, might wonder how a ceramic vase didn't smash upon contact with the wall. These may seem like small details, but that's where the believability lies. It's like Bryce Dallas Howard's hair in Jurassic World. Listen. I can buy that they brought dinosaurs back to life and made something called an Indominus Rex. But you mean to tell me that her hair goes from straight iron to cute beachy waves in the jungle instead of a giant ball of frizz? I don't think so. Anyway. At the Pickmans' Christmas party, Sallie caused some mayhem by lighting a doll on fire, to which one of the extended family members replied, quote, Sallie probably felt left out because she didn't get anything from Santa, end quote. Once again, though, Sallie had lit a fire and wasn't sent away, or whatever other punishment was implied in Debra's growing promise of or else's. Instead, they brought back the Santa they'd hired for the party and had a do-over for Sallie. Look, I may not be the best parent in the world, but I do know that kids need boundaries and consistency. And if you tell them to stop lighting fires and they don't, you don't go bringing Santa in to give them presents. The whole point of Santa is to get kids to behave. If your kid continually lights shit on fire, Santa doesn't come. Ipso facto, or whatever. But also, could you imagine what that Santa must have been thinking, having to sit there and give presents to an invisible child? At least he could have been pretty sure she wouldn't pee in his lap. Apparently, they'd asked Sallie to try to communicate with them using paper and crayons, and they found the letters G and O on a clipboard of papers they'd left her, and apparently Debra was like, "Oh look, she's communicating with us." "Yeah, girl, she's telling you to get out." This family was being held hostage by a tiny, invisible little nightmare of a girl, and once again, instead of calling a priest or, burning sage or something, they made the choice to try to communicate with her instead. This time, they held a seance with their buddy George, who brought along 2 of his co-workers, the result of which was some pretty significant scratches to Tony's forehead, which were particularly odd because he hadn't felt anything scratch him, and they didn't bleed nearly as much as one might expect wounds on the forehead to bleed. I don't know why Sallie had it out for Tony, and perhaps there are details missing from the story, who can say? But she apparently started following him to work, blowing heavy doors open and such, to the point where Tony's co-workers didn't want to work anywhere near him. And back at home, one night that spring, he experienced what I would identify as an episode of sleep paralysis, but what he was certain was Sallie sitting on his chest and not letting him move. He tried to scream, but couldn't. Eventually, he was able to utter, "Sallie, let me up," and he was, once again, able to move. And then, Tony had a dream in which someone grabbed him by the wrists and tried to yank him out of bed. He awoke in the morning with marks around his wrists that Debra said looked like burns. Again, maybe it was a ghost. Maybe your husband is stepping out with someone who likes things a little rough. In April, after receiving copies of photos from Debra with weird anomalies in them, Barbara, the psychic, called and was like, "Girl, you have 2 ghosts now." The second ghost was an older woman, possibly Sallie's mother. Following a brief family vacation to visit other family, during which everyone decided that things like basement doors opening and closing on their own meant that Sallie had traveled with the Pickmans, they had a respite of just over a month, during which everything was quiet. No fires, nothing being flung across the room, no more scratches or bruises. Things were so quiet, in fact, that Debra was worried Sallie was actually gone. Debra wrote, quote, "This was the longest duration without activity we had had to date. I was worried that she had left us. I actually began to feel a great loss, not knowing whether she was around." End quote. I guess I get it. She'd grown accustomed to the little bugger, but also, good riddance? A little bit? No? Just me? But then, in June, just in time for Taylor's first birthday, musical toys began playing on their own at all times of the day or night. And on the night of the 24th or 25th, Taylor woke up screaming in his crib. Debra scooped him up and soothed him, but every time she laid him back in his crib, he would begin screaming again. Finally, she took him to her room where he fell asleep easily. The next day, Debra says she began seeing tennis ball-sized glowing lights flittering around her house. At this point in the book, Debra is referring to multiple ghosts, and again, I think because of the lack of editor, it's unclear how or when all these sprightly roommates were identified. But there were enough of them that Debra was now putting Sallie in charge of keeping Taylor safe in his crib. Listen, stranger, I don't mean to victim blame here, but I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided by either calling a priest, burning some Palo Santo or whatever, or moving the hell out of there. Instead, they issued empty threats, bought gifts, and generally made welcome at least one ghost. I'm not sure what they were expecting at this point. Strangers, this episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mix, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The New Year's means a clean slate. IQ Bar has you covered. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients that keep you physically and mentally fit. I carry IQ Bar's plant protein bars wherever I go. They're a smart snack choice with plenty of plant protein, tons of fiber, and no added sugar. I love the coconut chocolate chip and the peanut butter. Or if you're looking to rehydrate after your workout with IQ Mix, a zero-sugar drink mix that hydrates with electrolytes, improves mood, and boosts clarity. Change up your morning routine with IQ Joe, a mushroom coffee designed for mental clarity and packed with 200 milligrams of natural caffeine. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text STRANGE to 64,000. Text STRANGE to 64,000. That's STRANGE to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. At Taylor's first birthday party, it seems, Sallie pinched one of the other babies there, which Debra decided was, quote, an act of protection and possessiveness toward Taylor's new toys. I don't know if Debra admonished Sallie for this, but I'm sure by this point, if she did, Sallie was like, "What, bitch? What are you gonna do?" Debra claims that they caught spirit voices on camera during the party. She wrote, quote, 2 of the most remarkable clips were captured while most of the children were together opening the gift bags we had prepared for them. The voices that were caught in the audio recording sounded like children saying, "rabbit's foot," and "that's all she gets." It suggests that spirit children were not only aware of our activity and surroundings, but watching and commenting on the activity they were seeing in the room. I found this amazing, end quote. I haven't seen these clips, but I'm willing to bet it was a case of a lot of noise combined with active imaginations and confirmation bias. My breast pump used to make sounds that sounded distinctly like the words watermelon and tobacco. If I wanted to, I could have attributed it to ghosts, but it was just the pump and my weird human brain. This was confirmed when a friend halfway across the country randomly posted a video of her breast pump that was the same make and model as the one I had used, clearly sounding like it was wheezing out tobacco with each pump. Maybe the same ghost was haunting both our machines hundreds of miles and a few years apart? Or maybe we humans like to hear and see things that make sense, so we often mistakenly attribute human-like things to non-human stuff. Baby Taylor seemed to see and react to things his parents could not. He would wave at something or squirm and giggle as though he were being tickled. And he would follow something unseen to his parents with his eyes and watch whatever it was for minutes at a time. And then, one morning in July, Debra and Taylor were playing in the nursery when, quote, I heard a strange, loud, almost screeching static noise coming from the crib. It startled me at first. Then I realized it was one of the birthday gifts that had recently been installed on the wall of the crib. I found it odd that the toy would have been sensitive enough to pick up our quiet play from where we sat on the floor several feet across the room. End quote. I mean, that is odd, but what's even more odd is what kind of baby toy emits a screeching static noise? Maybe it's supposed to be like squirting a cat with water when it gets up on the counter? Like maybe instead of playing something soothing in reaction to the baby crying or whatever, it starts screeching in an attempt to just terrify the baby back to sleep? But, of course, Debra decided it was, quote, some other form of energy or noise, and, quote, it was the first time I wondered if any of our experiences could indicate a demonic presence. Was it a warning of sorts? End quote. I mean, how many warnings do you need? About 20 minutes after the screechy thing, Debra said she could hear a soft moaning coming from her bedroom and went in to find Tony lying prone and seemingly paralyzed on the bed with a look of terror on his face. Quote, I asked him what was wrong. Instead of speaking, he gasped deeply for air as if he hadn't taken a breath for several minutes, end quote. He then described what he'd just experienced. He saw what he thought were dust particles stirred up by the vent, but that wasn't possible because it wasn't on. And then the waterbed began moving and the pillows were jumping into the air. Of course they had a waterbed. The dust cloud got denser and took the form of a woman's torso. Debra quotes Tony in her book, quote, this thing started to move closer to me, and as it did, I could make out more details, like dark hair and a bitchy look, like the store owner's wife on Little House on the Prairie. I was getting pretty scared, and I don't know why I didn't try to get up and leave. As she got closer, I could see she was dressed all in black with a high collar adorned with a brooch. At that point, the water in the baffle of the mattress was frantically sloshing, and it got so violent that I was barely able to move away and toward the other side of the bed. My heart pounded like crazy, and I thought it would burst out of my chest any minute. I tried to call for you, but nothing would come out, end quote. Then the furniture started acting up. Quote, in an instant, she was in front of me. The bedroom door slammed shut, the drawer from the nightstand flung itself open and closed repeatedly, and the top of the highboy spun around. It was like being in a sci-fi movie, and I could not scream, end quote. Her hand lunged for his face, and he heard a voice say, I'm gonna. And her black lace-covered hand, which had a black bird perched on it, because of course it did, was inches from his face. Tony managed to get out of bed and try to get to the door, but couldn't open it. He said he kept trying to scream, but couldn't, and at some point essentially blacked out. He woke up back in the bed but didn't remember getting there, and the next thing he remembered was calling for Debra. Again, this sounds like pretty standard sleep paralysis. I used to think I was moving all over the place during sleep paralysis, but I was apparently just having incredibly vivid dreams or hallucinations because I would wake up right back where I'd fallen asleep, unable to move or speak. Taylor continued to have instances in which it seemed as though something in or over his crib was freaking him the hell out, and he refused to sleep there. I mean, again, babies are weird and get finicky, but also, what do I know? And then, Barbara, Tony's brother's boss's sister, the psychic, started calling the media without Debra and Tony's knowledge or permission. The TV show Sightings contacted the family. They'd apparently authenticated the various anomalous photos Barbara had sent them and wanted to bring a crew to the house to film. Tony, who you will remember had already experienced shunning at work for weird ghost shenanigans, wanted to remain anonymous, and while the show changed all their names, didn't identify the town in which they lived, and blurred out Tony's face, they didn't blur out Debra's face. So, what was any of it for? At some point early on in the filming, while Debra was being interviewed, Tony got the crew's attention and showed them 3 scratches that had just appeared on his arm, as if by magic. Now, obviously he could have scratched himself while no one was looking, but then, shortly after that, while Tony was being filmed, he became distracted, lost his breath, and said he could feel Sallie there. He said there was a cold sensation that passed right through his midsection. He unbuttoned his shirt and revealed more scratches. And, again, he could have easily scratched himself before the cameras were rolling, except that the welts and scratches were appearing in real time as the cameras rolled. It's hard to see now because the footage is pretty degraded, but you can see all 4 episodes of Sightings on the Sallie House on YouTube, and I'm willing to believe that they didn't air the footage unless it looked real. Everyone in the room seemed gagged at what was taking place in front of their eyes. It was not the only time Tony would be scratched while cameras were capturing it. When Barbara, who of course managed to be there while the cameras were rolling, asked Sallie who scratched Tony, she said Sallie told her it was a woman. This ghost hadn't been there when the family had arrived, but showed up with a visitor at some point and liked it so much that she decided to stay. Apparently this lady was responsible for a lot of the tomfoolery Sallie was getting blamed for. In her book, Debra wrote, quote, "At this point, I told Sallie that we knew a lot of the things that had been happening weren't her fault. I tried to tell her that we knew she was trying to be a good girl and we were proud of her. We assured her that she was still welcome to stay with us and that we loved her," end quote. Strangers, I'm so excited to tell you about our new sponsor, Avocado Green Mattress. Their certified organic mattresses, pillows, and solid wood furniture are made without harmful chemicals, with thoughtfully chosen materials designed to support healthier living and more restorative sleep. You know how much I love my sleep, strangers, and I am serious about it. Avocado products are made with certified organic, non-toxic materials that support cleaner air, fewer harmful chemicals, and a healthier home for everyday living. Thoughtfully selected natural materials touch your skin, surround your body, and help create a safer, more supportive space for rest and recovery. I don't want to be sleeping on gnarly chemicals, do you? Choosing organic, sustainably sourced materials means you're making a healthier choice for yourself while also supporting cleaner, more responsible production. Avocado products are built to last with durable, high-quality materials. It's an investment in your health and wellness and long-term vitality, not a short-term fix. And there's no regrets. Sleep trials of up to 1 year ensure you're getting the best mattress for you. Avocado, dream of better. And now they're having a great sale on mattresses. Go to avocadogreenmattress.com/strange to get up to 15% off. That's avocadogreenmattress.com/strange for up to 15% off mattresses. avocadogreenmattress.com/strange. The host of Sightings refers to the case as one of the most incredible they'd ever encountered. They brought in several paranormal investigators to take all kinds of readings with their various machines that go bing. Temperature readings dropped suddenly, electromagnetic whatevers wavered. Camera feeds were interfered with, even though the host assured the audience they were on a closed circuit and it was impossible for anything to interfere with them. One of the experts they brought in was a man named Al Rober, who, according to Debra's account later, acted like a real negative Nelly during the filming of the second interview. He was skeptical, which frankly anyone coming into a situation like this should be, and he accused one or the other of them of faking it. Regardless of Rober's attitude, Tony continued to get attacked with plenty of witnesses around to verify he wasn't doing it to himself. This time, he ended up with, quote, huge welts forming across his forehead. After the second visit from Sightings, Debra and Tony put the kibosh on more visits. Rober sent them a letter apparently apologizing for his shitty attitude and blaming it on the producers who wouldn't let him investigate the way he wanted to. Regardless of the apology, however, Debra and Tony agreed not to let the crew back in the house. It was too intrusive. But after the episodes aired, a neighbor who had lived in the house before them showed up unannounced to tell them she'd watched the show and remembered that when she lived there, her young daughter had an imaginary friend named Sallie. The friendship seemed to end after the family moved out of the house. This, of course, confirmed what Tony's mother had told the couple way back when the troubles began. She said she knew the previous tenants and their daughter had an imaginary friend named Sallie. And so, I guess this was enough for Debra and Tony to say yes when Sightings came a-knocking again to film more episodes. This also may have had something to do with anyone with half a brain being able to figure out that Tony was the blurred-out face in the episodes, given that his wife's face was clear as day for all to see. Tony was now intent on trying to prove that they weren't making it all up. So for episode 3, the Sightings team brought in psychic Peter James and claimed they told him almost nothing about the case. Before even entering the home, he announced there was a little girl looking at him from an upstairs window. Once inside, he stood right at the bottom of the stairs and exclaimed, quote, "There's a little girl standing right there, right at the top of the stairs. Hello, can you speak to me? Sallie? Is that your name?" James stood at the entrance of one of the rooms upstairs and said that whatever was in there didn't want him to come in. And so, in an effort to assert his dominance or whatever, he commanded whoever it was speak to him. And just then, Tony felt a rush of cold air and a sting on his back, and when they examined it, it looked like the letters M and C had been scratched into his back, each about 5 inches high. And then, in her book, Debra claims Tony's shirt caught on fire right there. Quote, "At first it seemed to smolder, and this is what caught the eye of one of the crew members standing behind Tony. The shirt then burst into flame, and several of us began to smack at it to put it out. Tony seemed to have been completely unaware of what was happening. When the flame was finally put out, inspection showed that Tony's skin was not affected, only the shirt." End quote. But this, for some reason, didn't make it into the episode? What on earth? This is baffling. If it really happened, how did it not end up on the show? Someone's shirt catching on fire by itself is great television. If it didn't happen, why would Debra have put it in when there's literal video footage of the moment in question? Like, I get that time can confuse memories, but shouldn't she have gone back and watched the episode to make sure she was remembering things correctly? Psychic Peter James said the sense he got was that the house had something to do with a, quote, medical person who had a strange lifestyle. The show then sort of breezes over findings that one of the former occupants of the home was a disgraced doctor whose, quote, lifestyle led to his eventual arrest and removal as the town's mayor, end quote. Now, you know me, stranger, I'm not going to let a comment like that slide by, even if the producers of Sightings and Debra didn't see fit to elaborate. So I did a little digging and found some info on one Dr. Charles C. Finney on a blog about figure skating history, of all places. Come with me on this really weird and brief rabbit hole, stranger. Charles Finney was born to Michael and Kate Catherines Finney sometime in the mid-1800s. Kate, you'll remember, was the one who bought and built the house that Debra and Tony moved into on New Year's Eve of 1992. Or maybe it was Michael who bought and built? That would make more sense. Anyway, Dr. Finney was elected mayor of Atchison in 1914, only serving 2 years after being found guilty of selling alcohol during the Prohibition. Now, why, I hear you asking, is this information in a blog about the history of figure skating? Well, let me just go ahead and quote the blog directly. Quote, "Finney enjoyed success as a competitive figure skater. As the December 28, 1883 edition of the Atchison Daily Globe describes, last evening the gold medal was awarded to Miss Florence Guerrier and Charles Finney, the best couple skaters. A skilled figure skater and roller skater, a young Finney won local competitions and frequently appeared on the ice dressed as a female, billed as Miss Colby of Baltimore. He was apparently so graceful on the ice that no one could tell the difference or surmise his identity. Perhaps as a result of his gender-bending act, Finney fell out of favor, and when the competition was held again in 1885, the local paper noted that the event was open to all gentlemen skaters except Charles Finney. Quote, "A prize of $5 in gold to the best gentleman skater in Atchison on New Year's night at the Palace Rink, open to all gentlemen skaters except C.C. Finney." End quote. This is apropos of nothing really, except that Psychic Peter James said the guy led an eccentric lifestyle, and I would say that being a cross-dressing figure skater in the late 1800s was definitely eccentric. However, another piece of information from this blog reveals, if it is indeed correct, that Debra's research, which showed no children dying in the house, was wrong. According to the blog, a tenant who lived in the house next door, which also belonged to the Finneys, had been deemed violently insane, and after a stay in a psychiatric hospital, had been released to the care of Dr. Finney. And in late 1906, she attempted suicide with her 6-year-old son. She survived. He did not. Strangers, Mint Mobile is back. Last year, we signed Monty up for Mint Mobile's 3-month unlimited plan, and we were so impressed we re-upped for the whole year. Mint Mobile is here to help you cut back on overspending on wireless this January with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. Mint Mobile's end-of-the-year sale is still going on, but only till the end of this month. Cut out Big Wireless's bloated plans and unnecessary monthly charges with 50% off 3, 6, or 12 months of unlimited. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number, along with all your existing contacts. This January, quit overspending on wireless with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. Plans start at just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/strange. That's mintmobile.com/strange. Limited time offer, upfront payments of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plans required. $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra, initial plan term only. More than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Ability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. If Debra was wrong about no children having died in the house, what else might she have been wrong about? Is it possible a young girl died in the house? Is it possible the young girl was actually a young boy? Don't forget that little boys used to wear dresses and bows and shit. Peter James claims to have identified at least 3 people who died in the house, including Dr. Finney himself. He said Sally's illness had something to do with her lungs and her foot. Remember, psychic Barbara said it was a toothache and something to do with Sally's hand. So maybe one or the other of them just got the appendage wrong? By the time the crew came back to film the 4th episode, Tony insisted on having someone with him at all times to prove he wasn't inflicting wounds on himself. I don't know for sure, but I would imagine the guys at the grain elevator were teasing him about getting attacked by an invisible 7-year-old girl. Tony had the crew bring him his food and water so they knew he couldn't have put anything in them to cause the injuries. And when he needed to use the restroom, he removed his shirt and had the crew document his appearance both before and after going into the bathroom. Debra claimed that no marks showed up on Tony's skin within 20 minutes of having used the restroom. Additionally, Debra wrote, quote, "When new marks were discovered, they were thoroughly inspected for authenticity and trickery. The scratches were all genuine, and there was no magical powder hiding a scratch or waiting to be acted upon in order to bleed on demand, as was later suggested by a fanatical skeptic. I was actually very impressed by the diligence of the team members to ensure that there was no foul play. Although a bit uncomfortable at times, Tony and I welcomed these inspections so that rumors of trickery could be ruled out once and for all." End quote. Sightings also brought in renowned psychic Carrie Gaynor for episode 4. Gaynor claimed that, quote, "In his 20 years of experience and the 850 cases he'd been involved in, he had never come across anything quite like the activity in the Pickman's house. He called the attacks on Tony that he witnessed frightening and said the whole thing was interesting, exciting, and potentially dangerous. In fact, the show framed the whole thing as pretty scary and terrifying, and seems to leave out all the stuff about Debra inviting Sally to cuddle with her, or all the toys they gave and accommodations they made for Sally. Sally really didn't seem all that menacing, aside from some light arson, until sightings showed up and made the whole thing seem like the family was under constant attack. Then again, it seems that Debra and Tony were indeed having 2 very different experiences in the house. While Debra was buying dollies and cuddling with Sally, Tony was living in a waking nightmare. Debra devoted some space in her book to Tony's first-person account. Tony wrote, quote, "Honestly, that house scared the hell out of me. At one point, I truly thought I was going to need an exorcist. I constantly feared for myself and my family's safety. I was worried that if the spirit got tired of messing with me, it would go after someone else, perhaps even Taylor. After all, he would not be able to tell us if something was wrong or was harming him. I worried every moment of the day for his safety." End quote. Tony said that Debra's lack of fear, contrasted with his own heightened fear, made him feel like less of a man, and he resolved to hide these feelings so he could be the, quote, strong protector of the house he felt he needed to be. You see, stranger, the patriarchy hurts everyone. To this end of pretending everything was fine, Tony apparently didn't share some legitimately terrifying experiences he had in the house. After moving in, he started having trouble sleeping and, quote, began hearing strange conversations, even though the voices seemed distant and unclear. As the days and months passed, these sounds got louder, and it was easy to determine that they were indeed voices, end quote. He was also seeing ghosts that apparently tended to look a lot like Debra. He was experiencing bodily attacks when he did try to sleep. He would have the sensation of cold hands moving up his legs and holding him down. Debra wrote, quote, "A few nights after he told me about this, I felt him violently shaking me out of a sound sleep to tell me it was happening again. As he lay next to me, he could feel pressure on his lower body. He could not see anything there, but he also could not move his legs. Realizing that something seemed to be on top of him, I sat up and forcefully yelled at whoever or whatever it was to get off of him," end quote. Debra claims to have found red marks like handprints on his upper thighs. The atmosphere in the house seemed to shift after the sightings crew had come and left. Tony's anger, rage, and resentment seemed to grow and was hyper-focused on Debra. He was increasingly feeling the urge to hurt Debra and was scared of his own instincts. He started pleading with Debra that they move out of the house, which, that should have happened months and months ago. But hindsight is 20/20, I guess. And then, in mid-October of 1994, Tony's rage took a terrifying turn. Apparently, somehow a neighborhood cat had gotten into their house and was drinking milk from a bowl of cereal Tony had just prepared for himself, and almost without thinking, reflexively, Tony says, he grabbed a knife and stabbed the cat to death. Tony was excited for Debra to see the dead cat because he knew how much she loved cats and knew it would hurt her. He then thought, I'll just stab her too, and began formulating a plan to kill his wife. As far as we know, stranger, these two had not had any kind of violence in their relationship before this moment. There had certainly been tension over Debra's apparent warmth toward Sallie, and they certainly yelled about it, but this was out of the clear blue sky, as far as I can tell. When he returned home later in the day from errands, Tony's mind had cleared and he realized what he'd done and was horrified. He cleaned up the poor cat's body, which he'd left there for his wife to find. Fortunately, she had not found it. The next day, something tried shoving Tony toward the railing at the top of the stairs, and this was apparently the red line. Debra recounted, quote, "After the incident where Tony was pushed toward the railing, I realized it was the last straw and that the situation was very grave. Tony and our family were in danger, and I agreed with him. It was time to leave the house. The next day, we got a list of rental houses, and that evening we began looking at them. Tony's mom did everything in her power to help us, and within 2 weeks, we were packed and ready to go. We moved to a house only a few blocks away on October 31st, 1994, end quote. And the family was finally free. At last. No more ghosts, no more scratching, no more threats. Well, actually... Strangers, maybe if the Pickmans got better sleep, they wouldn't have had all these troubles? With Miracle Made sheets, they would have stayed comfy and cozy, even with the cold bursts of ghosts swooping in and out of their bedroom. If you wake up sweaty, freezing, or just uncomfortable, try Miracle Made sheets. The temperature in your bedroom can make or break your sleep. That's why I love my Miracle Made sheets. They're inspired by NASA technology and use silver-infused, temperature-regulating fabric to help you sleep perfectly all night long. And thanks to that silver-infused technology, Miracle Made sheets stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than regular sheets. That means fewer odors, fewer wash cycles, and way less laundry. It is luxurious comfort without the luxury price. Plus, all that hidden bacteria in your regular sheets, it can clog your pores and cause breakouts. Miracle Made sheets are going to keep your skin nice and clean. Upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/strange to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%. And when you use promo code STRANGE, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/strange, code STRANGE at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. In her book, The Sallie House Haunting, A True Story, Debra alludes to further attacks on Tony even after the family moved out of the house. She doesn't go into detail, but in a 2017 interview for the podcast Deviatus, Tony said he often feels a strong pull to the house. He claims to have woken up in the middle of the night one night, barefoot in the winter, having sleptwalked out of the house and was walking toward Sallie House. The couple claims that when they went back to the home with investigators at night, some significant activity took place, including Tony being physically attacked and scratched all over his body. My researcher even reached out to Debra for some clarification and received this reply from Debra. Quote, I intentionally left the reader with the idea that there was more to the story because there is more. I really need to write a second book as there is enough to do so, but it's all a bit convoluted. For the most part, the activity followed us, rather Tony. The activity we encountered wasn't just centered on the house. We have lived in 2 homes since leaving that house, and Tony has continued to have paranormal encounters, very relatable to the house. Quite often, we get some sort of repercussion events in our home when individuals challenge the dark entities in the Sallie House. We live about 8 blocks away. The town is only 17 streets wide. The events include fires, dream impressions, moving or moved objects, crosses jumping off the wall, and more. We don't advertise it or give it much attention these days. Unfortunately, going into detail requires a lot more explanation. So I hope that answers, albeit a bit generalized, your question. There are few that actually catch that tease, end quote. So, flowers to my researcher for catching the tease and for her thoroughness. This packet was 60 pages. And flowers to Debra and Tony for probably fielding a lot of shenanigans from curious folks like myself. The house has become a tourist trap because of course it has. And of course, its legend has grown and morphed because content creators need content, and they can't just be like, I went to the Sallie House and didn't hear anything, because not all content creators can be as ethical as Sherry D. Benedetti, who doesn't make shit up just for the sake of content, nor can they be as handsome as my husband Adam Berry, who hasn't investigated the Sallie House because he's just too handsome, okay? So, like the YouTubers who went to Portland to cover the Antifa war that absolutely wasn't happening outside the ICE detention center there and had to whip up people in order to make content. There's a great episode about that on This American Life from a few weeks ago. Content creators go to the Sallie House and claim all kinds of shit. There are plenty of TikToks and YouTube videos about the house claiming all manner of things. Apparently, there's some kind of health hazard happening in the basement these days, probably black mold, and so the basement is off limits to visitors now. But back in 2015, travel advisor user Queen of Hearts 77 posted this review. Quote, we went to the infamous basement where there was supposed to be a portal in the crawl space and where the demon or other entities live. My husband went over to the crawl space and was like, I don't believe you're real, I'm coming in. My ghost app started saying stop, sacred, end quote. Your ghost app? Okay, girl. But see, what was probably black mold or something is now a portal to hell. The tours range in price from $10 to $150, depending, I guess, on time of day, time of year, and self-guided versus tour-guided. The reviews are very mixed and probably line up with whether or not the reviewer is willing to believe or not, you know? Like Mulder would rate it a 5 out of 5, and Scully wouldn't even bother to go. Here are my 2 favorite reviews. Richard B., who visited in 2019, gave it 2 out of 5 stars in his review titled Kinda Weird, and had this to say, quote, "We didn't go inside as it wasn't open. I'm not all that superstitious, but to look at, it kinda gives one the creeps. We just drove by and did a quick check." Girl, you didn't even go inside? 2 out of 5 stars? Like, what? And this one from Nicole Leah 88, who gave it 1 star and said, "Weather is unpredictable, I understand. But we that pay for the tour can't predict the weather either, and coming from out of state, we can't come back the next weekend. Very disappointed when canceled because of rain and didn't get a refund. Wasted $64. Nicole Lee 88, I'm 100% sure you could have gotten a refund due to weather. Also, it's a house with a roof. Why would they cancel over rain? But it's not just reviewers and content creators making shit up. The town of Atchison, Kansas's official website has a page devoted to the house with this so-called history. Quote, "Originally built at the turn of the century, this house became the residence of an Atchison physician. The front served as office space and examination rooms, while the doctor and his family lived upstairs. One day, a frantic mother arrived carrying her 6-year-old daughter, Sallie. The child had collapsed from severe abdominal pain. The doctor diagnosed appendicitis and knew there was no time to delay surgery. Believing the appendix would soon burst, the doctor began cutting Sallie before the anesthesia took full effect. Sallie's screams suddenly stopped, and she grew pale and limp. She died on the operating table, her last memories of a man whom she believed was torturing her." End quote. But there are no historical records to back up most of that. In fact, the records that do exist show Dr. Charles Finney as having had his office where he saw and treated patients some blocks away from the residence. Of course, back then, I'm sure it was more common for people to visit a doctor at home in off hours, so it's possible that someone brought their daughter to his house in the middle of the night or on a Sunday or something. But other than that, there's no evidence of a girl named Sallie with appendicitis in any of the town's records. And how, on God's increasingly less green earth, could they possibly know what a dead girl's last memories were? It's impossible to parse out the truth in a story like this, even if you believe that most ghost sightings can be attributed to carbon monoxide poisoning or electrical interference or whatever. We can't know for sure that ghosts or spirits don't exist. In truth, we know so very little about our own brains, the nature of time, and the universe itself. And just because we don't know something exists doesn't mean it doesn't exist. According to an interview Tony gave in 2017, he grew up Catholic, and Debra grew up with an interest and fascination in ghosts. Those 2 upbringings could help to explain why they experienced this whatever it was so differently. A Catholic is more likely to believe in demons, and someone who wants to believe in ghosts is probably more likely to believe in benevolent little children ghosts who just want to cuddle. Who knows? Maybe it all stemmed from a bad bout of food poisoning. As Scrooge says to Marley, "You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Maybe one or both of them had a weird fever dream and the story just kind of grew and took on a life of its own. Maybe Debra had a fever and took a Tylenol and gained the ability to see ghosts. There will always be skeptics, and there will always be believers. There will always be Mulders and Scullys. For me, It's hard to imagine that the couple was just trying to get rich or famous with a made-up story when Tony refused to be seen on camera. And Debra didn't write the book until about 15 years after the whole thing happened. That's an awful long time to wait after perpetuating a hoax to try to profit off of it. It seems to me the Pickmans just want the whole thing to go away. So maybe, weather permitting or not, maybe skip the Sallie House next time you find yourself passing through Atchison, Kansas. Next time on Strange and Unexplained, Jimmy Hoffa was one of the most successful and feared union bosses of the 20th century. But he got there by playing footsie with the mob. The mob wasn't happy when he wanted to break up, and then suddenly, bloop, Jimmy Hoffa disappeared off the face of the earth without a trace. Strange and Unexplained is a production of Three Goose Entertainment and Grab Bag Collab. This episode was written by me, Daisy Egan, with research by Keely Hayes. Editorial help by Becca DiGregorio. Audio engineering and design by Jeff Devine. Music by Epidemic and Blue Dot Sessions. If you have an idea for an episode or want to submit a question for an Ask Me Anything episode, head to strangeandunexplainedpod.com and fill out the contact form. I will write back. Eventually. I need an assistant. You can follow me on social media at Daisy Egan or follow the show at SNU Pod and Grab Bag Collab. Stay strange. Thank you.